hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The alarm buzzed at 5:30, same as every weekday for the past 8 years. Russ Maddox rolled out of bed and padded to the kitchen, his bare feet silent on the cold tile. Coffee first, then breakfast for Taryn. The routine had become sacred to him, a foundation that kept his world steady. That he measured the coffee grounds with precision, 3 scoops for a full pot. The machine gurgled to life, filling the kitchen with the rich aroma that would wake his family. Outside, the neighborhood was still sleeping. Harper Lane stretched empty in both directions, lined with modest 2-story homes and carefully maintained lawns. "Morning, kiddo." He nudged his 14-year-old daughter's shoulder as she hunched over her debate notes at the kitchen table, index cards spread like battle plans. "Dad, I'm reviewing my opening argument. The topic is about immigration policy, and I think the other team is going to try to trap me with statistics about border crossings. Save it for the judges. You'll crush them." Russ cracked 2 eggs into the pan, watching them sizzle in the butter. "Scrambled or over easy?" "Scrambled. And toast. I need brain food." Taryn looked up from her notes, her dark eyes bright with excitement and nerves. "Coach Martinez says if we win today, we're guaranteed a spot at state championships." He smiled, watching her organize her thoughts like a general preparing for war. Taryn got her sharp mind from him, but her confidence came from somewhere deeper. She never backed down from a fight, especially when she knew she was right. Unlike her mother, who preferred manipulation to direct confrontation. "What time does your tournament start?" "9 sharp. Mrs. Peterson is driving me and 3 other kids from the team." She shuffled her cards, checking her facts one more time. "The topic is really complex, Dad. Immigration reform isn't something you can solve with sound bites. That's why you'll win. You understand complexity. Most people just want simple answers." Camille drifted into the kitchen wearing her silk robe, the expensive one he'd bought her last Christmas. Navy blue with cream trim. It had cost him $300 at Nordstrom. She moved like she was floating, always graceful, always perfect. But this morning something felt different. Her usual morning routine involved immediate conversation, questions about their plans, reminders about appointments or social obligations. Today she moved through the kitchen like a ghost, barely acknowledging their presence. "Coffee's fresh." Russ poured her a cup, added cream the way she liked it. 2 sugars, stirred counterclockwise exactly 5 times. "Thanks." Her voice sounded distant, distracted. He studied her face as she sipped the coffee. Camille had always been beautiful, the kind of woman who turned heads in restaurants and made other wives feel inadequate. Blonde hair that caught light like spun gold, green eyes that could sparkle with laughter or freeze with disapproval. This morning, those eyes seemed focused on something far away. That he leaned over to kiss her cheek, the same goodbye kiss he'd given her every morning for 16 years. She turned away, pretending to check her phone. The rejection stung more than it should have. They'd been distant lately, but he'd attributed it to stress. His logistics job demanded long hours, and Camille had been talking about feeling unfulfilled, trapped in suburban routine. "Big day at the debate meet, huh, Taryn?" Camille's smile looked painted on, the expression she wore at PTA meetings when she pretended to care about school fundraisers. "The biggest. State championships are next month if we win today." "That's nice, honey." Russ watched his wife carefully. Camille used to pepper Taryn with questions about school, about her friends, about everything. She'd been involved in every aspect of their daughter's life, sometimes too involved. Now she barely looked up from her phone. "What's your schedule today?" he asked. "Oh, the usual." She waved her hand vaguely. "Grocery store, dry cleaner. Lunch with Rebecca maybe." Rebecca Chun had moved to California 6 months ago. Camille knew this. "I should get going." Russ grabbed his keys and work bag, a worn leather briefcase that had belonged to his father. "Logistics meeting at 8. Patterson wants to discuss the Memphis route." "Drive safe," Camille said, but she was already scrolling through her phone again. "Bye, Dad. Wish me luck." Taryn stood up to hug him, her arms tight around his waist. "You don't need it, but you've got it anyway." He kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. "Make me proud, kiddo." "Always do." Camille didn't say goodbye. She didn't even look up when the front door closed behind him. The Harrison Logistics building sat on the edge of Kansas City's industrial district, a concrete block surrounded by warehouses and rail yards. Russ had worked there for 12 years, climbing from dispatcher to regional manager through sheer determination and attention to detail. His office overlooked the loading docks where trucks arrived and departed in careful choreography. He understood logistics the way some people understood music, seeing patterns and connections that others missed. The morning crawled by in endless spreadsheets and shipping reports. Russ pushed numbers around, tracking freight routes from Kansas City to Memphis, calculating fuel costs and delivery windows. But his mind kept drifting back to Camille's cold shoulder, her distracted behavior, the way she'd lied about lunch with Rebecca. His assistant knocked on the door at 10:30. "Patterson wants to see you in conference room B." The meeting should have been routine. Third quarter shipping reports, contract renewals with trucking companies, discussion of new software that promised to streamline their scheduling system. But Russ found himself staring out the conference room window, watching clouds gather over the rail yard. Something was wrong at home. He could feel it the way animals sense earthquakes before they happen. His phone buzzed at 11:15, vibrating against the conference table loud enough to make Patterson pause mid-sentence. "Russ Maddox. Russ." Camille's voice cracked through the speaker, high and sharp with panic. "Come home. Right now. Please." He sat up straight, every muscle in his body tensing. "What's wrong? Just come home. Something happened. I can't." Her voice broke into sobs, the kind of crying that sounded like it came from somewhere deep and terrified. In the background, he heard sirens. Multiple sirens growing louder. "Camille, what happened? Are you hurt? Is Taryn? Just come home. Please, Russ. I need you." The line went dead. Patterson was staring at him across the conference table. "Everything all right?" Russ was already gathering his papers, shoving them into his briefcase. "Family emergency. I have to go." He took the stairs 2 at a time, ignoring the elevator. In the parking garage, his hands shook as he fumbled with his car keys. The 20-minute drive home stretched like hours, every red light an eternity. Police cars lined Harper Lane like a parade gone wrong. 3 patrol units, an ambulance, and an unmarked detective car blocked the street. Red and blue lights painted the neighbors' faces as they clustered on sidewalks, craning their necks toward the Maddox house. Yellow tape stretched across the front yard like gift ribbon. Mrs. Henderson stood on her porch in a pink bathrobe, arms crossed, studying the scene with the intensity of a theater critic. The Johnsons from 2 doors down had abandoned their lawn mowing to join the crowd. Even teenage Tommy Martinez had emerged from his usual hibernation, recording everything on his phone. Russ parked crooked at the curb, his front tire bumping the sidewalk. He sprinted toward his front door, his work shoes slipping on the damp grass. A uniformed officer stepped in his path, young and serious looking. "Sir, this is a crime scene. You can't. That's my house. Can I see some ID?" "Dad!" Taryn appeared from behind an ambulance, her face streaked with tears. She should have been at her debate tournament, should have been arguing about immigration reform in some high school auditorium. Instead, she threw herself into his arms, her whole body shaking. "Don't go inside. Mom doesn't want you to see." "See what?" "Taryn, what happened? Why aren't you at school?" "Mrs. Peterson brought me home when the police called the school." "There's blood everywhere, Dad. Mom said a man broke in and she had to fight him." Russ looked over his daughter's head at the chaos surrounding his home. EMTs wheeled a stretcher toward an ambulance, moving with the controlled urgency that meant someone was barely alive. The man on it was unconscious, his shirt soaked red, an oxygen mask covering his face. "Who is that?" "I don't know." Mom said she never saw him before. But Taryn's voice wavered when she said it, the way it did when she was stretching the truth about homework or curfew. Russ studied the man on the stretcher as the EMTs lifted him into the ambulance. Tall, probably in his 40s, with dark hair and expensive-looking clothes. Even unconscious and covered in blood. He had the look of someone who spent money on his appearance. "Did you see what happened?" "No. I was still at school when it started. But when I got home, Mom was crying and there were police everywhere. She said he broke in through the back door and cornered her in the kitchen." Russ gently moved his daughter aside and pushed past the officer. "That's my wife in there. That's my house." "Russ." A familiar voice called from the front porch. Officer Kareem Duggan stepped into view, his notebook already half filled with scribbled notes. They played football together at Central High, back when life was simple and the biggest worry was passing algebra. Kareem had been a linebacker, quick and smart, the kind of player who read offenses before they developed. "Kareem, what the hell happened here?" "Your wife says an intruder broke in around 10:30. She fought back, stabbed him with a kitchen knife. He's alive, but barely." Kareem glanced at his notes. "Paramedics say he lost a lot of blood. Touch and go whether he makes it." Russ climbed the porch steps, his work boots heavy on the wooden planks. Through the open front door, he could see Camille sitting on their couch, wrapped in a blanket, talking to a female detective. Her makeup was smeared artfully, her hair messed up just enough to look like she'd been in a struggle. But something felt wrong. After 16 years of marriage, Russ knew his wife's genuine emotions from her performances. This looked like a performance. "Can I go inside? Crime scene techs are still working, but yeah, just don't touch anything." "And Russ." Kareem lowered his voice. "Keep your eyes open. Something about this doesn't add up." The kitchen tile was splattered with blood. Dark red drops led from the back door to the island where Camille kept her knife block. One slot was empty, the 8-inch carving knife missing. Blood had pooled near the sink, then trailed toward the living room in a pattern that looked almost deliberate. "Where's the knife?" "Evidence. Your wife says she grabbed it when a guy cornered her by the sink." Kareem pointed to the island. "Says he came at her, and she had no choice." Russ studied the blood pattern with the same analytical mind he used for logistics problems. His job had taught him to notice details, to spot when shipping manifests didn't match cargo loads, when delivery schedules had gaps that didn't make sense. The blood drops were too neat, too controlled. If Camille had fought for her life, if she'd been terrified and desperate, the blood would be chaotic. This looked like someone had been careful about where they stepped, where they bled. "Kareem." He kept his voice low, aware that crime scene techs were still photographing everything. "Something's not right here." His old friend glanced around, then leaned closer. "I know. There's no sign of forced entry. Back door was unlocked, but no scratches on the lock, no broken glass. Door frame's intact. Either this guy was a ghost, or someone let him in. That's what I'm thinking." "And your wife?" "She's hiding something. I can feel it. Been doing this job for 15 years, and I know when people are lying." Russ looked through the kitchen doorway at Camille. She was crying softly, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, her head tilted at just the right angle to catch the light from the window. The perfect victim, beautiful and vulnerable. But he'd lived with her for 16 years. He knew her tells, the way her left hand fluttered when she was nervous, the way she touched her throat when she was lying. She was lying now. The house emptied slowly as the crime scene team finished their work. Neighbors drifted back to their own lives, disappointed the show was over. The ambulance had departed with sirens wailing, carrying the wounded man toward whatever fate awaited him at Kansas City General. Russ sat on his front porch with Taryn, watching the last police car pull away. The yellow tape remained, fluttering in the afternoon breeze like warning flags. "Dad." Taryn's voice was small, uncertain. "Yeah, kiddo. That man they took away. I've seen him before." Russ turned to look at his daughter, studying her face carefully. Taryn had inherited his eye for details, his ability to remember faces and connections. She also had her mother's gift for reading people, though she used it more honestly. "Where?" "In Mom's car. About 2 weeks ago. I was walking home from school and saw them at the coffee shop on Elm Street. You know, the one next to the bookstore where I buy my novels." The words hit Russ with the force of a physical blow. He forced himself to stay calm, to keep his voice steady and fatherly. "You sure it was the same man?" "Positive. He drives a silver BMW. Really nice one, like the kind rich people have in movies." Mom was laughing at something he said, and he was holding her hand across the table. Russ stared across the street at Mrs. Henderson's rose garden. The old woman had finally gone inside, probably to start calling her sisters with the news. By evening, half of Kansas City would know about the break-in at the Maddox house. "Dad, are you okay?" I'm fine, kiddo. Just thinking. He put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. Taryn, I need you to promise me something. Don't tell anyone else about seeing that man with Mom. Not yet. Why? Because I need to figure some things out first. And because he struggled to find words that wouldn't shatter his daughter's world. Because sometimes adults make mistakes, and we need to be careful about how we handle them. Taryn nodded, wise beyond her 14 years. She was smart enough to know when adults were keeping secrets, smart enough to trust him when it mattered. Is Mom in trouble? The question hung in the air between them. Russ wanted to lie, to protect his daughter from the truth that was crystallizing in his mind. But Taryn deserved honesty, at least as much as he could give her. I don't know yet, but if she is, we'll handle it together. You and me. What about the debate tournament? I missed it because of all this. There will be other tournaments. Right now, family comes first. Inside the house, Camille had retreated to their bedroom. Russ climbed the stairs quietly, his work boots silent on the carpeted steps. The bedroom door was cracked open, and he could hear her talking on the phone in hushed tones. I know. It went wrong. He's not dead, just hurt. A pause. No, I can't talk now. Russ is home. She ended the call quickly as his footsteps approached. He pushed the door wider and froze that a leather jacket hung in their closet. Expensive leather, the kind that cost more than Russ made in a week. He'd never seen it before, had never owned anything that expensive or stylish. Whose jacket is that? Camille spun around, her face flushing pink. What jacket? The leather one. In our closet. Oh, that. I bought it for you. A surprise. For your birthday next month. Russ walked to the closet and lifted the jacket carefully. Size 44 long. He wore 42 regular. The jacket would hang on him like a curtain that he checked the pockets and found a receipt from Romano's, the fancy Italian place downtown. Dated 3 days ago. Dinner for two, wine, dessert. The bill was over $200 that he and Camille hadn't been to Romano's in over 2 years. The jacket smelled like expensive cologne and Camille's perfume. The scents mingled like they'd been close together for hours. This is a nice restaurant, he said, holding up the receipt. I thought we might go there for your birthday. Dinner for two. 3 nights ago, while I was working late on the Patterson account. Camille's face went pale. I was planning the menu. The waiter helped me choose wine pairings. For 3 hours? It's a complicated menu. Russ folded the receipt carefully and put it in his wallet. Then he hung the leather jacket back in the closet, making sure it hung exactly as he'd found it. I'm going to check on Taryn. He closed the bedroom door behind him and stood in the hallway for a long moment, letting the truth settle in his chest like a cold stone. His marriage was a lie. His wife was a stranger. And today's break-in wasn't random violence. It was a plan gone wrong. Russ waited until Camille fell asleep before he searched the rest of the house. She'd taken 2 of her sleeping pills, the prescription one she claimed helped with anxiety. Within an hour, she was breathing deeply, lost in chemical dreams. Her purse sat on the kitchen counter, unguarded for the first time in months. Camille had always been protective of her personal space, but lately she'd been almost paranoid about her phone and purse, carrying them everywhere like state secrets. Inside, he found a second cell phone that was a cheap prepaid device, the kind people bought when they didn't want calls traced back to them. The call log made his stomach turn. Dozens of calls to a number he didn't recognize, conversations that sometimes lasted hours. The text messages were worse. Miss you already. When can we be together for real? Soon. I'm working on it. He suspects anything. He's clueless. Always has been. What if he finds out? He won't. Trust me. The messages went back 4 months. 4 months of planning, lying, laughing at him behind his back. For months of his wife building a secret life while he worked 60-hour weeks to support their family. But the most recent messages were different. Desperate. Urgent, do we need to talk? Plan B. Tonight. After he leaves for work tomorrow. You sure about this? What if something goes wrong? Nothing will go wrong. I've thought of everything. And after we disappear. New life, new names, new everything. Russ scrolled back further, looking for the beginning of their relationship. He found it in a message dated 5 months ago. Thanks for helping me with my car. You're very kind. My pleasure. Beautiful woman, like you shouldn't be stranded. Maybe I can buy you dinner to say thank you. I'd like that very much. 5 months. His wife had been planning to leave him for 5 months, building a relationship with another man while sharing Russ's bed, eating meals he cooked, spending money he earned. He took pictures of the messages with his own phone, careful to capture timestamps and phone numbers. Then he put everything back exactly as he'd found it, making sure the purse was positioned at the same angle on the counter. Upstairs, Camille slept peacefully, her face relaxed and innocent. Her blonde hair spread across the pillow like spun gold, and her breathing was soft and regular. She looked like the woman he'd married, the woman he'd loved for 16 years. But that woman had never existed. She'd been an illusion, a performance designed to secure financial stability and social respectability. He stood in their bedroom doorway for a long time, studying the stranger in his bed, the woman who tried to destroy everything he'd built. She'd made one critical mistake, though she'd underestimated him. Monday morning came gray and cold, with clouds that promised rain. Russ called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years, claiming a stomach bug. Patterson would understand. Everyone got sick occasionally. He drove to Melina Doss's apartment complex in the Crossroads district, a converted warehouse that attracted artists, musicians, and people who valued authenticity over comfort. Melina had lived there for 5 years, ever since her divorce from a man who turned out to be remarkably similar to Camille. She answered the door in paint-splattered jeans and a Missouri Tigers t-shirt, her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Classical music drifted from speakers somewhere in the apartment, something complex and emotional. "You look like hell, Russ. What happened? I need your help, and I need you to keep it quiet." Melina's apartment was a reflection of her personality, organized chaos with hidden depths. Books stacked on every surface, art supplies scattered across a drafting table, a computer setup that looked expensive and professional. She poured him coffee that could strip paint and listen without interrupting as he explained everything. The break-in that wasn't a break-in. The messages on the secret phone. The leather jacket with its damning receipt. Taryn's revelation about seeing Camille with a stranger. That manipulative witch. Melina's voice was ice cold. "I never liked her, Russ. Always thought she was too perfect, too polished. Real people have rough edges. I need to know how deep this goes. Bank records, phone records, anything that shows what she's been planning. I know a guy who works at the phone company. Jimmy Kozlowski. Owes me a favor from when I helped him through his divorce." She grabbed her keys from a bowl by the door. "His ex-wife tried to hide assets too, but we tracked down every penny." "What about banks?" "My cousin manages a branch at First National. Sandra's good people, and she understands what it's like when spouses try to screw each other over." They spent the morning gathering evidence like detectives working a case. Jimmy at the phone company printed out 4 months of call records for both of Camille's phones, the legitimate one and the secret device. The pattern was clear, dozens of calls to the same number, increasing in frequency over the past month. "This number belongs to Jordy Thorne," Jimmy said, running it through his database. "Address on Warwick Boulevard. Drives a silver BMW, registered to Thorne Luxury Automotive. He's a car dealer. According to this, yeah. Specializes in high-end vehicles. BMWs, Mercedes, Lexus. The kind of cars people buy when they want to impress other people." At First National, Sandra pulled up the Maddox family accounts on her computer screen, her face growing more serious as she scrolled through transaction histories. "Someone's been busy," she said quietly. "Look at this." Over the past 3 months, Camille had transferred nearly $30,000 from their joint savings account to an account Russ had never seen before. Small amounts at first, $500 here, $1,000 there. Then larger chunks as time went on. "She was funding her escape," Melina said. "Planning to clean you out and disappear." Russ stared at the numbers on the screen. $30,000. Money he'd saved working 60-hour weeks, skipping vacations, driving a 10-year-old truck instead of buying something newer. Money meant for Taryn's college fund and their family's future. "There's more," Sandra said, her voice grim. "She took out a life insurance policy on you 6 months ago. $500,000. The coffee in Russ's stomach turned to acid. "I never signed anything. Signature looks legit to me. But then again, I'm not a handwriting expert. Sandra printed out the policy documents. Premiums being paid out of your joint checking account. Automatic withdrawal. Russ studied the signature on the insurance application. It looked perfect, identical to his real signature on dozens of other documents. But he'd never seen this paperwork before in his life. Camille had forged it with the skill of a professional counterfeiter. She wasn't just planning to leave you, Melina said quietly. She was planning to kill you. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Russ felt something fundamental shift inside him. A door closing on the man he'd been and opening on something harder, more dangerous. I need copies of everything. Already printing them, Sanders said. And Russ, be careful. If she's willing to forge insurance documents, she's willing to do a lot worse. Russ waited until Taryn left for school before he confronted his wife. His daughter had seemed subdued at breakfast, picking at her cereal while glancing between her parents. She was smart enough to sense the tension in the house, even if she didn't understand its source. Camille sat at the kitchen table, picking at a bowl of yogurt and scrolling through social media on her phone. She wore a silk blouse and perfectly applied makeup, ready for another day of lies and deception. We need to talk. She looked up, her face the picture of innocence. About what? He dropped the printed bank statements on the table like evidence in a trial. Her yogurt spoon froze halfway to her mouth. $30,000, Camille. Where did it go? I don't know what you're talking about. The phone records are interesting too. 4 months of calls to the same number. Want to guess whose number it is? Color drained from her face, but she kept up the act. You've been spying on me. I've been protecting my family. Something I should have done months ago. Camille set down her spoon and straightened in her chair, like an actress preparing for a difficult scene. I don't have to explain myself to you, Russ. We're married, not owner and property. You're right. Marriage is a partnership. Partners don't steal from each other. Partners don't forge signatures on life insurance policies. The mask slipped for just a moment. Fear flashed in her green eyes before the performance resumed. You're being paranoid. Maybe you should see someone about that. Maybe I should call Geordie Thorne and ask him about your dinner at Romano's. Camille's mask finally cracked completely. The sweet, innocent expression melted away, replaced by something cold and calculating. The real Camille, the one he'd never seen before. You want the truth, Russ? Fine. Yes, I've been seeing someone. Yes, I moved some money around. But you drove me to it. I drove you to steal from our daughter's college fund. You drove me to find someone who actually cares about me. She stood up, her voice rising to a pitch that would carry through the whole house. Do you know what it's like being married to you? You're boring, Russ. Predictable as sunrise. The same routine every day, the same conversations, the same everything. I was suffocating in this house, in this life. So you decided to have me killed? The accusation hung in the air like smoke from a gun. Camille's eyes went wide, then narrowed into slits. You're crazy. The life insurance policy, the one you forged my signature on. $500,000, Camille. That's a lot of motivation for murder. That was for our protection. In case something happened to you at work or in an accident. Something like what? A convenient accident on my way home from work. Camille laughed, but sounded forced, theatrical. You're paranoid, Russ. Maybe you should see a psychiatrist. I'm worried about your mental health. Russ leaned across the table, his voice barely above a whisper. You try to take everything, Camille. My money, my life, my daughter's future. You made plans with your lover to kill me and collect insurance money. You thought I was weak, that I'd never fight back. And what if I did? What are you going to do about it? He straightened up, his eyes never leaving hers. Now you get to watch what I take back. Russ found Geordie Thorne's son working at Murphy's Auto Parts on the south side of town. The shop smelled like motor oil and old metal, with rock music playing from a radio that had seen better decades. Grady was 17, thin and angry looking, with his father's dark eyes and the kind of sullen expression that came from growing up disappointed. You're the guy whose wife stabbed my dad. I'm the guy whose wife was planning to have me killed. Your dad was just the muscle. Grady dropped his wrench. It clattered against the concrete floor like a bell tolling. You don't know anything about my dad. I know he's in debt up to his eyeballs. I know he's been running stolen cars through his dealership to make ends meet. And I know my wife promised him enough money to make his problems go away. So what? That doesn't prove anything. Russ pulled out his phone and played one of Camille's recorded messages. The audio was scratchy from the cheap prepaid phone, but clear enough to understand that the T has to look like an accident. Can he do that? He'll do whatever you pay him to do. Money talks, especially when someone's desperate. Good. I'm tired of waiting. I want this over with. Grady's face went pale. He looked around the empty garage, then pulled Russ into the back office and closed the door. She told him you were violent, the boy said quietly. Said you hit her and threatened to hurt your daughter. Said she was scared of you, that you'd kill her if she tried to leave. And you believed that. My dad believed it. Said he was doing the right thing, protecting a woman and her kid from an abusive husband. He's not a bad guy, Mr. Maddox. He's just desperate. Russ studied the teenager's face. Grady wanted to believe his father was one of the good guys, but doubt was written in his eyes like graffiti on a wall. What was the plan, Grady? The boy looked at his hands, his voice barely audible. She was gonna drug your coffee or something. Make you sleepy while you were driving to work. Then Dad would follow you and run your car off the road. Make it look like you fell asleep at the wheel. She'd collect the insurance money and they'd leave town together. What went wrong? You didn't drink the coffee that morning. Left too early or something before the drugs could take effect. So they had to try Plan B. The fake break-in. Dad was supposed to rough her up a little, make it look real. Then when you came home from work, he'd attack you with a knife, make it look like self-defense. But she panicked when she heard the police sirens coming. Someone must have called 911 earlier than expected. So she stabbed him for real. Yeah, Dad said she had ice in her eyes when she did it. Like she enjoyed it. Russ felt pieces clicking into place like a puzzle solving itself. The perfect blood spatter. The unlocked back door. Camille's rehearsed performance for the police. Why are you telling me this? Grady wiped his nose with the back of his hand. He looked like a kid who'd been forced to grow up too fast, to see the world's ugly truths before he was ready. Because my dad's an idiot, but he's not a killer. Not usually. Your wife, though, she's got ice in her veins. She would have killed you herself if she thought she could get away with it. Russ spent the next 2 weeks becoming someone new. Someone careful. Someone dangerous. He installed hidden cameras in 3 rooms of his house. Tiny devices no bigger than buttons that transmitted video to an app on his phone. One in the living room, hidden behind a picture frame. One in the kitchen, tucked inside a smoke detector. One in the bedroom, concealed in the digital clock on his nightstand. The cameras were expensive, professional-grade equipment he'd bought from a security company in Kansas City. The salesman had asked no questions when Russ paid cash and provided a fake name. He opened a new bank account at a different institution, Liberty First Credit Union, and quietly transferred what remained of his savings. The account was in his name only, with statements sent to a P.O. box he'd rented under a false identity. He met with a lawyer, Harold Steinberg, who specialized in family law and asset protection. Steinberg was a small, precise man who understood that marriage could become warfare. I want to set up a trust fund for my daughter, Russ explained. Something my wife can't touch, no matter what happens. Divorce proceedings? Possibly. I want to make sure Taryn's future is protected. Steinberg nodded and began preparing documents. Smart thinking. Too many people wait until it's too late. At home, Russ played the role of the clueless husband. He brought Camille flowers, white roses from the expensive florist downtown. He made her favorite dinner, beef tenderloin with roasted vegetables. He even mentioned taking a vacation together, maybe to Mexico or the Caribbean. She ate it up like candy. I'm glad we talked, she said one evening as they sat on the couch watching television. I think we can work through this rough patch. Me too. I love you, Camille. I always have. The lie tasted like poison in his mouth, but he forced a smile. Behind the television, a camera the size of a button recorded everything. Russ also made a friend at the phone company. Not Jimmy, who'd helped Melina with the records, but a different technician named Rodriguez who specialized in law enforcement wiretaps. For the right price, he could set up a listening device that would make every call Camille made available through a secure server. This is serious stuff, Rodriguez warned. If you get caught, I don't know you. I won't get caught. The device went live on a Tuesday, piggybacking on the phone company's existing infrastructure. By Thursday, Russ was listening to his wife's conversations in real time. What he heard made his blood run cold. The call came at 2 in the afternoon on a Friday, while Russ was supposedly at work reviewing shipping manifests. In reality, he sat in his truck in the parking lot of a shopping center 3 miles away, listening through earbuds as his wife made the biggest mistake of her life. "Jordy? It's me. Jesus, Camille. I told you not to call me. The cops are still watching. We need to talk." He's starting to suspect something. "What do you mean?" Jordy's voice was rough, probably from the injury to his throat. "He's been asking questions about money. Yesterday, I caught him going through my purse, and this morning he wanted to know why I had 2 phones. Maybe you should back off for a while. Let things cool down. I'm still recovering from what you did to me." "No." Camille's voice turned sharp, dangerous. "I'm not spending another year married to that man. I can't take it anymore, Jordy. I wake up every morning wanting to scream. So what do you want me to do? I'm lucky to be out of the hospital. The doctor said if you'd hit me an inch to the left, I'd be dead. I need him gone. For real this time. No more games, no more staged accidents. Just gone." Silence stretched across the phone line. When Jordy spoke again, his voice was different. Harder. "That's not what we agreed to. I signed up to help you fake a break-in, not commit murder. You will if you want to see any of that money I promised you. 50,000, Jordy. Enough to pay off your debts and start over somewhere new. But only if you finish what we started. And if I say no, then I tell the police you were the one who planned everything. That you forced me to help you kill my husband for the insurance money. Who do you think they'll believe? A grieving widow or a desperate car dealer with a criminal record?" Another pause. Russ could hear Jordy breathing heavily, weighing his options. "When? Soon. I'll let you know when the time is right." The call ended. Russ sat in his truck, staring at the shopping center parking lot, feeling something cold and final settle in his chest. His wife didn't just want him gone. She wanted him dead, buried, erased from existence like he'd never mattered at all. But she'd made a crucial error in judgment. She'd underestimated what he was willing to do to protect himself and his daughter. He pulled out his other phone and dialed Kareem Duggan's direct number. "Officer Duggan. Kareem, it's Russ Maddox. I need to see you tonight. Bring a tape recorder and whatever paperwork you need to make arrests." "What's going on, Russ?" "I'm about to hand you a conspiracy to commit murder. Gift wrapped with audio evidence and witnesses." Grady Thorne met Russ in the parking lot of a 24-hour diner on Highway 50, the kind of place that served truckers and insomniacs at all hours. Neon signs reflected off wet asphalt, and the smell of bacon grease drifted from the kitchen windows. The kid looked nervous, glancing around like he expected police cars to come screaming out of the darkness. His hand shook as he lit a cigarette, the flame illuminating a face that looked older than 17. "You said you had something for me." "I do. But first, I need to know you're not wearing a wire or recording this conversation." Russ held up his hands and turned in a slow circle. "Clean." Grady pulled a flash drive from his jacket pocket, a small black device that looked innocuous but contained enough evidence to destroy lives. "This is everything. Every conversation my dad recorded over the past 6 months. He always kept insurance, you know, in case his business partners try to screw him over. Your wife's on there, planning your accident, talking about the insurance money, laughing about how stupid you are." The kid's voice cracked with emotion. "All of it." Russ took the drive. It was warm from being in Grady's pocket and surprisingly heavy for something so small. "Why are you doing this?" "Because what she did to my dad was messed up. He trusted her, believed her story about you being abusive, and she tried to kill him to cover her tracks." Grady took a long drag from his cigarette. "And because if you don't stop her, she's going to kill you for real next time. My dad's tough, but your wife? She's evil." Back at his house, Russ waited until everyone was asleep before plugging the drive into his laptop. The files were organized by date, dozens of audio recordings spanning 6 months of criminal conspiracy. He started at the beginning and listened to the birth of his wife's betrayal. The early conversations were seductive, romantic. Camille playing the role of the lonely housewife, trapped in a loveless marriage. Jordy responding like a knight in shining armor, promising to rescue her from suburban purgatory. But as the weeks progressed, the conversations turned darker. Talk of insurance policies, staged accidents, ways to make a husband disappear without leaving evidence. The most damning recording was from 3 weeks ago. I've been thinking about the coffee idea. What kind of pills should I use? Something that'll make him sleepy, but won't show up in an autopsy. I know a guy who can get us the right stuff. How much? Enough to make him drowsy, not enough to kill him outright. We want it to look like he fell asleep at the wheel. And you'll follow him to work? I'll be right behind him. When he starts to nod off, I'll ram his car off the road. Make it look like he hit a tree. What about the insurance investigation? They'll rule it accidental death. Happens all the time. Overworked guy falls asleep driving to work. But the worst part was listening to her laugh about it, that he's so stupid, she'd said to Jordy just 2 weeks ago. Brings me flowers and thinks everything's fine. He has no idea what's coming. You sure you can go through with it? Are you kidding? I've been planning his funeral for months. Already picked out my outfit for the service. Russ copied the files to 3 different locations. A second flash drive, his laptop's hard drive, and a secure cloud storage account. Then he called Kareem Duggan. I need to see you. Tonight. Bring everything you need to make arrests. Wednesday morning, Russ told Camille he was leaving town for a logistics conference in St. Louis. 3 days, 2 nights, boring meetings about freight schedules and transportation regulations. I'll miss you, she said, kissing his cheek with lips that tasted like poison. He almost believed the performance. From his hotel room in St. Louis, a room he'd actually booked to maintain the cover story, Russ monitored the hidden cameras in his house through his phone. The video quality was excellent, clear enough to use as evidence in court. Camille waited exactly 2 hours after his departure before making her call. The listening device picked up every word. He's gone. 3 days. You sure this time? I can't afford another screw-up. Positive. I watched him drive away with his suitcase. He even left his schedule on the kitchen counter. All right. Tonight, then. Midnight. Use the back door like we planned. I'll leave it unlocked. And after, we take his truck and drive it to the lake. Make it look like he came back early and surprised a burglar. You kill me too, just a little bit. Enough to look convincing. I don't like this, Camille. Too many things can go wrong. Nothing will go wrong. I've thought of everything. By tomorrow morning, we'll be free. Rich and free. Russ called Kareem from the hotel lobby. It's happening tonight. Midnight. We'll be ready. You sure you want to be there for this? Wouldn't miss it for the world. At 11:30 that night, Russ crouched behind Mrs. Henderson's fence with Kareem and 2 other officers. The street was dark except for the occasional porch light, and a thin fog had rolled in from the river. Detective Sarah Martinez crouched beside a patrol car, coordinating with the tactical team through a radio. She was new to the force, but had a reputation for thorough preparation. All units in position. She whispered into her microphone that a silver BMW turned onto Harper Lane at 11:58, headlights cutting through the fog like knives. Jordy Thorne parked 3 houses away and walked casually toward the Maddox residence, carrying a crowbar and a knife like they were the most natural things in the world. That's him, Russ whispered into his radio. Inside the house, Camille was waiting. The hidden cameras showed her pacing in the living room, checking her watch every 30 seconds. She'd changed into dark clothes and had a small suitcase by the door. The back door opened at exactly midnight. Upstairs, Camille whispered, her voice picked up by the listening device and transmitted to the officers outside. His bedroom. Make it look like he came home early and caught you robbing the place. What about you? Cut me just enough to look convincing. Then we call 911 and play the victims. Jordy climbed the stairs, crowbar in one hand, knife in the other. Camille followed, carrying a baseball bat she'd retrieved from the garage. They were going to stage Russ's murder in his own bedroom, complete with signs of a struggle and defensive wounds on both their hands. Jordy pushed open the bedroom door. Police lights flooded the room like artificial sunrise. Police! Drop your weapons! Jordy spun around, the crowbar clattering to the floor. Camille screamed, but it wasn't the practice scream she'd used during the fake break-in. This was real terror, the sound of someone whose perfect plan had just collapsed. You set me up. She turned toward the bedroom window, where Russ stood with Kareem Duggan and Detective Martinez. Russ looked at his wife, his soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. You did that all on your own. The trial lasted 3 weeks and became the biggest news story in Kansas City since the mayor's corruption scandal. Local television stations sent reporters to cover every day of testimony, and the courthouse steps were crowded with cameras and microphones. Geordie Thorne, facing charges for conspiracy to commit murder and attempted burglary, flipped on Camille in exchange for a reduced sentence. His testimony, combined with the recorded conversations and the evidence Russ had gathered, painted a clear picture of premeditated murder. She told me he was abusive. Geordie testified from the witness stand, said he beat her and threatened to kill her if she tried to leave. I thought I was helping a battered woman escape. But you also thought you were getting $50,000, the prosecutor pointed out. Yes, ma'am. I needed the money to pay off some debts. Debts to who? People you don't want to owe money to. Camille's lawyer, an expensive defense attorney named Patricia Hawkins, tried to argue that her client was a victim of domestic abuse, driven to desperate measures by her husband's controlling behavior. She painted Russ as a manipulative man who'd driven his wife to the edge of sanity. The jury didn't buy it. The recorded conversations were too damning, too cold, and calculating. Camille's laughter while discussing her husband's murder was particularly devastating. Several jurors visibly recoiled when the audio played in the courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, the prosecutor said in her closing argument, this is not a case about domestic abuse or a desperate woman. This is about greed, pure and simple. Camille Maddox wanted her husband dead for one reason: money. $500,000 in life insurance, to be exact. The verdict came back after 6 hours of deliberation. Guilty on all counts: conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, attempted manslaughter, and theft. 25 years to life. Russ won full custody of Taryn without a fight. Camille's parents, horrified by their daughter's actions, didn't contest the decision. They'd moved to Florida within a month of the trial, unable to face their neighbors' stares and whispered conversations. I never really knew her, Camille's mother had told Russ during one painful phone conversation. I thought I raised her better than this. He sold the house on Harper Lane within a month of the verdict. Too many bad memories, too much blood on the kitchen tile that no amount of cleaning could erase. The new owners, a young couple with 2 small children, got a good deal and didn't ask questions about why the previous owners were so eager to leave. The lake house Russ bought was small but peaceful, surrounded by oak trees and far enough from town that Taryn could heal without neighbors whispering about her mother's crimes. It had a long dock that stretched into clear water, and mornings were quiet except for the sound of fish jumping and birds calling from the trees. Melina helped with the move, just as she'd helped with everything else. She didn't push for anything romantic, understanding that trust would have to be rebuilt slowly, carefully. You did the right thing, she told him as they sat on the dock one evening, watching the sun set over the water. Did I? Sometimes I wonder if I should have just divorced her, let her leave with whatever money she could steal, and let her try the same thing with the next man. She would have, you know. People like Camille don't change. They just find new victims. For now, it was enough to sit on the dock in the evenings, watching his daughter cast her fishing line into the calm water. Taryn had adapted better than he'd expected, throwing herself into her studies and debate team with renewed intensity. Dad, yeah, kiddo, do you miss her? Mom, Russ considered the question carefully. He missed the woman he'd thought Camille was, the illusion she'd created during their early years together. But the real Camille? The woman who'd tried to murder him for insurance money? No, he said. I don't miss her at all. Tara nodded and recast her line. Good. I was worried you might be sad. I'm not sad. I'm free. And he was. Free from lies, free from betrayal, free from a woman who'd tried to destroy everything he'd built. The future stretched ahead like the lake itself, calm and full of possibilities. He didn't forgive Camille. He never would, but he'd won.